And we also say stick to the facts. We like to be our own authors and write a whole fiction story before we know any information.
Oh my gosh! If I had like a backache, I'm like writing. I'm like, okay, I'll start. Maybe I should do a will and
Yeah.
and like
Exactly.
it's a good point.
So we slow you down, but I think it can be concerns about, as big as worrying about dying, or as little as if I'm going in for chemotherapy and I have to lose my hair and I have to put my kids to bed tonight and they're going to see me bald. How is that going to affect my kids? From those, people could be worried about finances. People could be worried they're making a simcha, right? Their daughter's getting married or their sister's getting married. And how do they go to the simcha looking like a cancer patient? So there's a lot of things that people are concerned about.
Welcome back to another episode of Inspiration for the Nation. I'm Yaakov Linger. And what if I told you that you're going to die? You will. You are going to die. I am telling you that. But what if I told you you're going to die a lot sooner than you anticipated? That is something no one wants to hear. And in this week's episode, we talk about the experience and what happened with the person, Rochelle Shoretz. She got a cancer diagnosis that was not good. And this whole entire episode is about the movement she started from when she heard the news, and literally how she changed the world, how she continues to change the world, even though she's no longer here with us. It's a very interesting episode because we have someone who's running Sharsheret, an organization that you can hear a lot about. And we also have Rochelle's, one of her sons, Shlomo, to talk about his experience. And it's a very unique episode. And I'm confident that this episode will save someone's life. You'll hear why it's going to save someone's life. It might save your life. And I hope you don't need Sharsheret, but if you do, they're one of the most incredible, fantastic organizations that exists. So here is this week's episode. This episode is in memory of Rochelle, is also in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shlomo and Miriam Sarah bas Yaakov Moshe. Without further ado, the episode about cancer. We can all use some inspiration to help us overcome the obstacles we encounter in our lives. Get ready for thrilling conversations about struggle and triumph with those in pursuit of making a positive impact in this world. I'm Yaakov Linger, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Okay, we are here today with the CEO of Sharsheret and someone who has experience with the founder of Sharsheret. So, Elana, this for you is not your first podcast.
No. I mean, I'd love to do more. I've done about 5 or 6 of them over the last couple of years, especially as people realize the value of virtual connections and online engagement. So we found places for us to really share information about Sharsheret through podcasts. So it's an opportunity that we really appreciate. So thank you so much for having me.
Okay, you're a pro already, I can tell. And Shlomo, this is for you, your first podcast.
Yeah, it's my first podcast. I always wanted to do like a sports podcast,
Okay.
but I don't have any time for that.
Maybe living Lchaim, we'll get you doing like a sports one.
Yeah.
But more than that, for you personally, this is going to be, I guess, your first time on, I guess, a digital or maybe a public setting, sharing, I guess, your story, your experience with, how Sharsheret got founded, I should say.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I've never really, I didn't really think about that when I was like, when I accepted it, because I'm always willing to talk to people about my story and my mom and everything that's come with it. But yeah.
Okay, so let's start there. We're going to go back and forth between each of you, but yeah, share how, I guess, why you're here today.
So my mom, in 2001, my mom felt a lump on her breast and felt like it was out of the ordinary when she was putting on a bathing suit, and went to the doctor. She found out that it was stage 2 cancer. And she, as a young mother of 2 at that point, didn't really know where to turn, because at that point it was 2001. So there weren't a lot of people that were talking about cancer in general. Certainly not young women, certainly not young Jewish women. There was a lot of stigmas related to it. So she really didn't know where to go. And my mom was never the type of person who wanted to try to deal with things by herself. She always wanted to connect to people, open up, talk to people, get everybody's, input. And so from there, she really felt like she needed to start asking and finding somebody who's living a similar experience to her. So that's how she eventually got set up, so to speak, with Lauren Weiser, and they kind of, from there, it kind of started to bubble into something way bigger than I think she thought at the time.
And how old were you at that time in 2001?
I was 6.
Okay,
I was
so
born
you're
in
like very,
1995.
very young.
Yeah, very young. My brother was 4. I'm the oldest. It's just me and him. So, so we were both very young.
Are
And-
your memories of your mother essentially just going through this challenge?
Yeah,
throughout?
we always joke because my brother has a very good memory. So like he remembers certain things. My mom also clerked for the Supreme Court for Justice Ginsburg. So that was back in 1998. And my brother still has memories of that time.
Wow.
I have like very, very sparse memories at best of that time, like certain rainbow cookies and such, but nothing of any sort of substance. But so I don't really remember so much like that time. The time like before my mother had cancer.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to your story with her, but so Elana, first off, Sharsheret, where did that name come from? It's Hebrew?
So Sharsheret is the Hebrew word for chain, and it actually was Shlomo's mother, Rochelle Shoretz. It was her vision, and from what she told me, it came to her in the middle of the night. And she was thinking about this relationship that she had with Lauren Weiser, who is another young Jewish woman diagnosed with breast cancer, who literally carried Rochelle, through her cancer diagnosis, through those harrowing days before surgery and treatment. And she realized that this personal connection, having someone like her, was part of the healing process that was going to get her to a healthier place. And she decided if we could connect people, almost like a chain, how many women could we help? And she said Sharsheret is the Hebrew word for chain. And this was going to be primarily a Jewish organization connecting women to each other and women to resources. So she decided to come up with the name Sharsheret.
It's such a good idea because like whenever anyone goes through a struggle, the first thing that they feel often is just being alone. And having someone who maybe has gone through an experience similar, or even if they haven't gone through the experience, but like to hold your hand throughout the process, it's a game changer. And sometimes it could save someone's life in ways. So like, I love that idea of a chain and being linked to someone because that's what it's really all about.
Yeah. Over the last couple of years, I feel like we've seen so many like different types of, organizations related to just people, finding groups of people that they can talk to. So I kind of felt like Sharsheret was just like ahead of its time. And then the big part of like Lauren and my mom's connection was also the fact that they were both mothers. Like I know my mom was like, that was like a humongous part of her identity was being a mother. Like certainly me and David felt that. So like, I feel like from that perspective, that was like another thing. Like maybe had it just been her, she might have tried to, figure it out. But I think the idea of like having to navigate this and having, a husband and children, like that was something that she really wanted to have somebody else's perspective who like lived a similar kind of experience. Obviously everybody's experience is different, but like you pick up on certain things and there are certain things that, certain bonds that mothers have that they understand. And, I think that was very helpful for her.
What was her vision though? Did she anticipate it would turn into the monster, and I say monster in a good way, that Sharsheret is today? Or was it like, okay, let's just help people going through difficult times? And
So I don't think at the time she could have imagined the impact Sharsheret would have and the far reach it could have, because I think it was very personal. And she, while focusing on the one-to-one, she did realize the opportunity for growth. And ultimately, as the years went by, her goal was to ensure that every Jewish family knows about Sharsheret should they ever need us. I mean, what we've realized now is there are a lot of good causes out there in the Jewish community and the broader community, but ultimately, there is no woman, and certainly no other person who loves a woman who will not need Sharsheret in their lives, whether for themselves or someone else. So I think she thought big, because if you think even just in the US, how many Jews are there? Every single Jewish person should know about Sharsheret. This is a resource that they will need for themselves or someone. So I think she was hoping it could be big in that way and help as many people as possible. but it starts from a very personal place.
Right. And you know what? I mean, I'm doing this show and I always try to get as many organizations as I can to talk about their story. But there's something more impactful when the person who started an organization is someone who actually went through a struggle. You know, obviously we can't talk to her today, so we're talking to you guys, but there's something really special about it because they could really understand the hardship that it is to, produce whatever organization or help that's there, because they get it, they've gone through it. So what was her journey like, after the first few years, be it, I guess, with cancer and then also with Shharsheret? Open question to either of you. I don't know who.
So she was diagnosed in 2001. I was a kid, so all the timelines are still a little like funky for me, so I don't know exactly all the years exactly. At some point though, the cancer went into remission. It was around 2004 or so. But like she's, once she started Sharsheret, she was really like, she realized very quickly. I mean, like Elana was saying, like it's a very personal like organization, obviously, and it started very personal. Like there's like a very famous picture, and every Sharsheret office, this picture has gone of like the first Sharsheret meeting with like, and these are all people that I know, like Esther Walkenfeld. There are a million people that like, just like not a million. There were like 5 people around our dining room table. So like that's where it started, but it quickly started to pick up a lot of steam. So over the next couple of years, she was really working towards making this a big part of her life. She thought she was going to be a lawyer. So like she really, kind of like really turned on a dime. I don't know exactly how those conversations with my dad went, but like kind of turned on a dime, and they were all hands on deck for making, starting this organization. By around 2004, cancer started to go into remission. She was still very, very like involved in making sure that she was, picking up the organization and making it grow as far as she knew that it could grow. Eventually, I don't know exactly what happened. She wanted to go back to law for a little bit, so she went back for a couple of years to Debevoise in Plimpton, where she worked in litigation. And then eventually, 2009, her cancer came back as stage 4 cancer at that point. And around that time, she came back to Sharsheret full time. She was just like, this is the way that I want, to finish off my career, like to work with Sharsheret and, make it really grow, and, for as long as she could.
Well, okay. And we're going to get more into practically what Sharsheret does and the importance of, we had a pre-call of like, obviously it's very important for women to know, but it's also very important for men to know, which I would love to talk about. But Shlomo, I want to talk about your experience personally. How old were you when your mother passed away?
So I was 19. I just came, in 2000, so she passed away in 2015 in the summer. So I had gone to Israel that year. At that point, my mom was always very open with us. She always said, I'm going to let you know when it's the time to worry. And she was true to her word. She always told us. So, when she found out that the cancer was back, she said, it's not, it was stage 4. So she knew like that was going to be, she always made a lot of jokes. Sorry to digress a little, but no, sure. She always said like, unless a bus hits me first, like this is what's going to be the thing that's that's going to do it for me. So that was already by like 2009. We already knew that. Then, when I went to Israel, things were still kind of just, staying course. She was taking a lot of different medications and things like that. Once I was in Israel, that was a very hard year. It was my first year in Israel, and my brother was back at home. My mom just got remarried and divorced pretty soon after. But my mom's health was starting to really like go a little bit. And I could tell like over FaceTime, like her eyesight was starting to go. She even visited me like at some point during that year with my brother, and she was having trouble like walking around Yerushalayim, and she walked everywhere. Anybody who knows her knows that she walks forever. She can walk to and from New York City all the time from Teaneck. Like she was always doing that. So I kind of like was picking up that we were kind of getting close to the end. When I came back from like by Pesach time, we really knew that, things were really getting close to the end. The plan was, I always wanted to go back for a second year. And the plan was I was going to go, I was, was going to go 1 year and then the second year right after. Most people go like 2 years in a row. But we decided that, we didn't think my mom was going to make it into that next year. So it was probably better for me to be around my brother and still like start college. But the plan was that I was going to go start college and then go back for the next year in Israel. But so that was the plan. But the plan was I would still finish off the rest of that first year. I'd finish off the summer and then come back. So I went back to Israel after Pesach, to finish off the summer. And within 25 hours, I was already back home because things had gotten dramatically worse, over the flight. I landed the next morning. I already was, I think my mom came down with pneumonia and, she was already very sick at that point. So like even, something little like pneumonia can, really be a very, damaging. So I came back right away. My mom passed away about 5 weeks later. So.
Wow. So, towards the end of her life, what did she have to say about Sharsheret? Like, what was her hopes? Because she obviously knew at that point that she would not be here much longer. But what she started her legacy was like, in certain ways, you guys are just getting started, and you're doing so much, but there's so much more and so many more people to help. What was her, I guess, parting message for Sharsheret?
So it's kind of funny that you're asking that, because during that time, she spent a lot of time in Sloan Kettering. And I would go to visit her every day and bring her work. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to work. And her family said, Elana, stop bringing her work. It's killing her. And I said, no, this is what she wants. I'm going to bring her work, because she would get very into the work. And then, so one day when I was in the hospital with her with all these papers and things that she was working on, she said, I want everyone to leave the room. I want to talk to Elana alone. And I'm thinking, this is it, right? She's going to tell me. She was brilliant. She's going to tell me what the next step is for Sharsheret. And so I walk out and she said, Elana, give me your hand. And she was holding my hand. She was in the bed and I'm listening. And she doesn't say anything. So I said, Ruchi, what? And she's like, oh no, everyone's just annoying me. I want them out of the room. I just want to be alone with you. So that's what she was like. I think, I worked closely with Ruchi I came on in 2003. So like officially I was a volunteer first.
Wow.
And
so
then
you're
I
there
came on
almost since the start.
So we were a very good team. Obviously, she was my mentor and brilliant, and I would try to keep up with her. That's what she said. Sharsheret is just that good because everyone's trying to keep up with me. Because ultimately, that's what we want to do at Sharsheret. We want to keep up with the women. So she was very brilliant in that she worked very hard to make Sharsheret not the Rochelle Shoretz story, but the story of the thousands of women and families who reached out to Sharsheret. And I think that was very successful, because when she did pass away, the organization continued carrying on her legacy in a meaningful way, but it was not only her story. And I think she ultimately wanted Sharsheret to be, she had clerked, like Shlomo said, for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So she had the standards for the organization that she would equate with the Supreme Court.
Wow.
Now, she wasn't the justice, but we treated her like the justice. So she set that up. And because when you're going through cancer, you don't want to just turn to a place that's messy, not professional, not
Right.
smart.
Right.
Women and families who reach out to Sharsheret, these are educated people. These are smart people. These are people who are contributing to the community. This is a vulnerable population because they're ill, but not because they are desperate. And she is a typical example. Here was this highly educated woman who needed Sharsheret. So do the thousands of women and families who reach out. So I think she would be very proud of where Sharsheret is. I'm sure she would have even had even better ideas. But at the end of the day, as many people that know about us, Sharsheret is doing good work and we are saving lives. And that's a concept that people don't understand. How is Sharsheret saving lives?
So let's get into that. How practically is Sharsheret saving lives? And also, also for someone who doesn't know Sharsheret, I'm sure a lot of people do, but people who don't, like, okay, what does Sharsheret exactly do? I'm sure there's a lot of things. So
Right.
what is that?
I want to make it really simple because at the end of the day, illness is complicated. Sharsheret should be easy.
Okay, that's
So Sharsheret has two areas of focus. One is direct services for women and families who are diagnosed are at risk for breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So what does that mean, direct services? Emotional support, mental health counseling, financial subsidies. Cancer is really expensive.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And we know finances are limited. And so Sharsheret is offsetting some of those costs. And that is the support that we give. So we have social workers, we have a genetic counselor. Everything is free, everything is confidential, and everything is available to women and families in their home. This predates the years of COVID where everything was virtual. Sharsheret's always been virtual because women are busy and they don't have time to go anywhere. They want answers today when they're going to the doctor tomorrow. They want to understand the spiritual aspects of being affected by cancer because tomorrow could be Rosh Hashanah. And they have to go into shul and they're davening and they're going to talk about who shall live and who shall die. This is a daunting experience if you've just been diagnosed with cancer. How do you manage that? Sharsheret will help you. And then we also, the other bucket, so that's direct services, and this is life-saving education. Sharsheret is out there educating the Jewish community. You need to know that 1 in 40 Jews of Ashkenazi descent carries a BRCA, a BRCA gene mutation. Men and women carry this mutation. If a woman carries a mutation, her risk for breast cancer goes up to 80%.
Wow.
And ovarian cancer, 40 to 60%. And men who carry the mutation, not only can they pass it on to their sons and daughters, they themselves are at increased risk for male breast cancer, prostate cancer, melanoma, and pancreatic cancer. So you need to understand your risk. So there are measures today you can take to protect your lives. And we know.
Let's say someone does. So what could someone do to help prevent it or get more information about?
So
personally?
The first thing we tell everyone, and that's why we're doing, 500 to 700 outreach and education events a year, from college campuses to shuls to schools, everywhere we can share on podcasts.
Yeah.
Why don't we have podcasts and webinars, whatever it is, wherever people will listen, we will go.
Right.
So we are educating. The first thing everyone can do, and everyone could do it now on this call, know your family history. On your mother's side, on your father's side. Did they have cancer? What kinds of cancer? Because all these different cancers could be related to each other. You could call Sharsheret and speak to a genetic counselor and understand, are you a candidate to get tested? If you've been diagnosed with cancer, should you be going for genetic testing? Yes. Because you've had cancer, you might think, I don't need to know, I already have cancer. But no, there are other pieces. So that is life-saving education. I remember going to speak at an event and we were talking about ovarian cancer and family history, and a woman came over to me and she said, my mother had ovarian cancer, but she tested negative for a genetic mutation, so I haven't done anything. So I said to her, I think you should talk to our genetic counselor, just find out more, because a negative test doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to worry. And this was a woman who was getting older, and she called Sharsheret's genetic counselor and said her family history, and we said family history is important, even if you have a negative test in your genetics. And she went to the doctor, and the rest is history, and we saved her life.
Wow.
Had she not gone to the doctor, her outcome would have been different. So these are the kind of things that people can do. I mean, once you test positive for a mutation, we encourage you to speak to your healthcare professional, but there are surgeries people can do, extra surveillance, there are therapeutics people can take. You don't have to wait for cancer anymore. If you have the information, you can take steps to save your life.
Right. It's really wild, the whole dynamic of how cancer, I was in Camp Simcha, and people were talking about how, when camp started, the amount, it's childhood cancer, but the amount of people or kids that died was so much more because just the advancements in technology just were not there. Plus also the awareness, I'm sure cancer has been around, but we are so much more sophisticated. So it's really cool what you're saying that, obviously cancer is terrible, but if you're good, if you think you're good now, great. And just keep on being good by being informed and calling up. It's one of those things no one wants to do. I don't want to call up. It's uncomfortable. I don't know. I think I'm good. I'm probably good. But you're saying, what's the worst that's going to happen? Okay, call and everything's good, or God forbid you call and now you have something to take care of. It makes a lot of sense. Would you say that it's ironic that you're trying to provide this awesome service for people, whether it's helping people financially or just mentally or just whatever it is. But like, you have to chase to do that, and like, you know, be in people's faces about doing it. Like, it should be easy, but it's not really, I assume.
No, it's also a really hard call to make. No one wants to be part of this club. And by calling Sharsheret, you join the club. So very often, the first call we get is not from someone going through cancer. It's from a husband. It could be from a mother. It could be from a best friend, because Sharsheret works with families too. But we do people don't want to talk about cancer. We're working very hard in the last 20 years to remove the stigma, and the conversations are happening more. Like you said in Camp Simcha, people are talking about cancer. It's not the C word necessarily anymore.
Right.
But, you know, when I talk to women who are going for a mammogram and they're nervous because it's the one place you're going to find out if you have cancer, why does anyone want to do that? So we have to encourage people to make doctor's appointments, to go for screenings. We help people understand how insurance can cover these screenings. I mean, if we have to send a message out today, that would be one of the messages. Make your doctor's appointments. There's too many cancer diagnoses happening later because people are delaying the screenings. There are clear guidelines of ages, which anyone could call Sharsheret. I'm not going to bore the listeners with the details, but call us and we'll tell you what the recommendations are for screening, and talk to your doctors. It's really important to communicate with a medical team, and Sharsheret can prepare you for that.
I think like some of that comes from like people being like lazy, or they got a lot going on, and so they don't, you know, they're busy. But like for me, like some of it is also just, there's like especially if you have cancer in your family, like there's a certain like fear to giving that call, and like, you know, people trying to like stay away from finding out the truth. But like, I would just recommend to everybody to really reach out and call, because it's extremely important, and, you know, better to have the knowledge. It will limit the fear. If that's something that you're struggling with, that's what I would say. There's too much fear, and it's important to just do your best to just rip off the Band-Aid, so to speak, and give the call and be informed.
Yeah, I think of like that parable of someone walking through the forest, and someone's like, oh, we have a flashlight so we could see like if there's any ditches. And he's like, no, I don't want to see the ditches. He's like, but if you turn on the flashlight, you'll be able to avoid them, and then you won't be in a problem. Like, that's kind of like what making this call is like. What are the kinds of, I guess, fears or just challenges that people calling are going through, or just people going through cancer? Like, could you give insight to people that maybe, you know, are fortunate not to really know, like insight into someone's life who's either about to go through treatment and cancer and all that, or have been going through it?
So I think about, even today, I got a call from someone who said her cousin just went to get screened, and there was something seen on an ultrasound. And the doctor said, I think you need to go check more, and it's cancer. And she's panicking, right? And what goes through your mind? She doesn't even know if it's cancer yet, right? There's just that fear. So that is a concern. So you can reach out to Sharsheret, and there's a social worker who speaks to hundreds, thousands of women. I mean, I think we speak to 8,000 to 9,000 women a year.
Wow.
So you can say, like, I know, kind of think of it like AI, where you group together all of this data, and so our social workers have it. So when a woman calls, we understand her concerns, like in the waiting room. And then when you're diagnosed, you can imagine what it sounds like. I don't know if anyone is familiar, but it's just like all of a sudden you can't hear what they're saying. So Sharsheret prepares you to hear. We can understand. Give recommendations. You know, go to appointments with somebody so they can take notes. Talk to the doctor, because you can't hear when it's about you. You're so distracted. And we also say stick to the facts. We like to be our own authors and write a whole fiction story before we know any information.
Oh my gosh! If I had like a backache, I'm like writing. I'm like, okay, I'll start. Maybe I should do a will, and and like it's a good point.
So we slow you down, but I think it can be concerns about, you know, as big as worrying about dying, or as little as if I'm going in for chemotherapy and I have to lose my hair and I have to put my kids to bed tonight and they're going to see me bald. How is that going to affect my kids? From those, people could be worried about finances. People could be worried they're making a simcha, right? Their daughter's getting married or their sister's getting married, And how do they go to the simcha looking like a cancer patient? So there's a lot of things that people are concerned about. And, Shlomo alluded to family issues, right? You could be married with a husband. This is a lot for a family to take on. So there's personal things that they're worried about. And they just don't understand what the doctors are saying. When you're diagnosed with cancer, or maybe you're at risk and you find out you have a genetic mutation, this is a whole new language. You don't understand it. And the options are limitless. And very often doctors will say, you can choose this way or you can choose that way. How am I supposed to decide? We help you. You can speak to someone else who had those choices, someone who chose option A or someone chose the second option. So I think the concerns run the gamut. It could be as easy as people know that a holiday is coming up and you have to cook for 20 people coming for Yontif. How are you supposed to do that when you have treatment on Friday and you haven't told your family that you're going through cancer?
Right.
So these are all different types of things that are going on in people's minds. And so Sharsheret is this one stop, which whatever your concern, and also we understand what it's like to be Jewish, right? If you call a secular organization, you have to explain why the holidays are such a trauma for you,
Right.
and holidays are fun in the
You have to
secular
explain
community.
like it's like Thanksgiving every Yom Tov, and like they don't
Or you're
necessarily
going
know
to
that.
shul and everyone sees you and everyone wants to catch up and you don't really want to tell everyone what's going on, or you don't feel up to it, or you look around and you think that you're being noticed. And all these kind of things are what people are going through and facing, besides trying to work, raise your children, and do all these things. There's so much going on.
Do you see like a silver lining? Obviously, cancer is terrible; it should be gone, abolished, etc. But do you see a silver lining? The fact that cancer could really affect anyone, no matter how religious, non-religious, Jewish, non-Jewish they are. So there's this, I guess, you get to see behind the scenes of your organization that there's this community of people going through something, and they could be, I'll choose like wide range, like someone who's like super Hasidish and, maybe never spoke to anyone who's not Hasidish. And then you have someone who's like, barely, keeping Shabbos, but, they're, two Jewish souls going through the same thing. And all of a sudden they're, I guess, together in some way.
So we don't call it silver lining, we call it Sharsheret.
Okay,
Because
okay.
that's exactly, we had an event in Chicago the other week, and the people who came to the event really reflect the whole spectrum of the Jewish community, and we're together for a common cause, and there's a no judgment zone and no barriers between them. And I think it is a very unifying experience for those who want to join this community. And very often, even after the cancer experience, women and families want to give back, and they want to give back through Sharsheret. And that, I know I probably cut you off, so you could add to that.
Good. Yeah, no, like my mom has spoken everywhere. She's spoken in Lakewood, she's spoken in LA, she's spoken all over certainly all over America, and like has, and the reach has certainly gone even beyond America. I know certain people call in from everywhere. I think sometimes people, are like, oh, Sharsheret, it's a Jewish organization. Sharsheret is so much more than a Jewish organization. Sharsheret helps anybody, first of all, that calls. And also, it's just, they have all the resources of any other organization. So, I know, like, even just, Elana was talking about, like, the big and the small things that Sharsheret does for everybody. And, like, I just remember, like, the early years of Sharsheret, like, busy boxes, just to help, like, toys for the kids to play with, because
Right.
sometimes you're distracted and you need to distract your kids with something, and you just don't have the energy, or lying in bed, and you just need to have something for them to do. Sharsheret thinks of everything, so I just think Sharsheret is just, it's in a great place. I know, like, just going back to my mom for a second, like she always chose for Sharsheret like the best people to work with, and she loves Elana, loved Elana, loved working with her, and the organization has continued to grow and hasn't skipped a beat because of that, that just continuation and that like-mindedness, and that Sharsheret has such a great balance of, on the one hand, connecting to people emotionally, on the other hand, being so like thorough and logical and having all the resources. It's great for somebody who, especially for people who are going through cancer. There's so much of a whirlwind in your head. You don't even know like what to think. Anybody in the family doesn't know what to think. And Sharsheret is there for every person and every aspect of the disease. So I think it's in a really great spot right now, the organization.
Right. And it's definitely, it's powerful coming from you being someone who, was affected by cancer, and then being, like you said, like a little example like that, like getting a box of toys to like distract. It's very thoughtful. It's, when it comes to life and death, people generally like, okay, it's life and death, and they forget there's a lot of people affected, not to their fault, but like a lot of people affected, and those little things really do make up the big things.
Right. It's so much like, I remember a story when I was really little, and I was going to camp, and my mom had no shame, like the fact that she had a bald head, that didn't, that was par for the course. That's the way that it worked. And she was taking me out to the bus, and, I came back to her one day, and I was like a little embarrassed. I was like, Mom, now I feel like terrible about that. But,
okay, but that's
I was
natural.
a little
It's
kid,
normal. It's fine that you felt that.
It's just those little things that I think like that people would overlook and say like, we can't deal with that issue right now because we're dealing with cancer. Sharsheret has a very clear way of just making cancer, in a way you don't want cancer to become a part of you, but in a way you can't really help it. If you have cancer, it is a part of your whole life. And Sharsheret has a way of helping with every single aspect of it to just really like create a cushion for people and families.
Wow. Is there, I know people listening, they love stories, and I know you shared a few stories. Is there another story or a particular story about how Sharsheret helps someone in a certain way? I mean, you said that life-saving story before, but I don't know.
Yeah, so there are thousands.
Okay.
But I think, when I think about the Hasidic community and the Frum community, and for those that maybe are more private, and at Sharsheret, we're not looking to change anyone. If you want to be private, we totally respect that, and we want to be there for you. So we've had families. There was a family that who was Hasidic or very, very Frum, where they weren't telling each other about what was going on, but they had Sharsheret to turn to. And when the mother ultimately passed away from cancer, the children were feeling very upset that the mother never told the children she had cancer, and they felt like she was really alone because she was so private, and maybe the community encourages you to keep it quiet. But the word got back to Sharsheret that this woman's family felt very sad for their mother, and somehow we made the connection through an article in a magazine. And we went to the children and said, your mother didn't face cancer alone. We were with her every step of the way, and she was speaking to us every week, and we knew everything about the family. And I think that was the first time that they felt true nechama, the first time they felt comfort beyond the Shiva and beyond the Shloshim, that Sharsheret really carried the family through. And, on the flip side of the Hasidic, there are those that find out for the first time that they even have Jewish blood. There's so much DNA testing going on now that we had a woman who grew up and was Catholic and had a Polish background and did DNA testing and found out that she had Ashkenazi Jewish heritage going back to the time of the Holocaust. So we're speaking to people who are connecting to their Jewish identity in so many different ways, and Sharsheret can understand that and be there for them.
I always find that fascinating when it comes to, I think businesses in general, when it comes to like understanding how much money they need to operate and how much money they're making and all that stuff. But, my little knowledge of organizations, it's very expensive to run because you're like, if the organization was a person, I would like make it like Superman. Like you're doing a lot, or Superwoman, or both. But so how does that work? How does like fundraising work? How does the budgeting work?
So, for lack of a better word, it is a business, because if you want the good work to happen, someone has to do it.
I was going to say, by the way, before I was going to say, like, Rochelle, like it seemed like she ran this like a business in such a good way, like very smooth, clear, and clean, and a mission. And
so we had we said we work banking hours for nonprofit rates.
Right. Okay.
So, but everything at Sharsheret is free. Everything is free.
Wow.
Which I actually had a call with someone in Israel who is interested in possibly bringing Sharsheret there. And she said, wait a second, you do this all for free? You do everything for free? The social workers, the genetic counselor, all these things like the busy box, makeup kits, paying for wigs and paying for non-medical services. I said, yeah, everything is free. So first of all, if anyone out here needs Sharsheret, don't worry, everything's confidential, everything's free, and everything's accessible. You can call from your house, your your car, whatever, wherever you can call from the hospital, you can call from your doctor's office. We've done FaceTime with doctors because we partner with the medical community. We work with the CDC. I was the chair of the Federal Advisory Committee on Breast Cancer in Young Women, which is really important because we brought the Jewish voice to the national platform. So on the government level, Sharsheret is representing the Jewish community. So when you want to do research and you want to spend, the government should spend money, the Jewish crisis when it comes to breast cancer and ovarian cancer, it's up there. So it is a business in that way. And it costs a lot of money, but it doesn't cost you anything if you call us. So we have funding from 4 different revenue streams. One is thousands of people give donations to Sharsheret, and every dollar matters. We probably have 10 or 15,000 people giving to Sharsheret every year, and small dollar amounts or big, but not huge. Really, we're seeing a lot of small donations, but we are happy that everyone's giving something so that they learn about what we do. So we get from individuals, we get some government funding from the CDC. We also work with companies that make drugs that help breast cancer and ovarian cancer. They very much want to give back. So we get money from corporations, which is good because it offsets. We don't have to push so much on the Jewish community more than we have to because we raise money from that. And then we do special events like galas, and we run in marathons like the New York City Marathon and Chicago. And
Best
people are running, they're crowdfunding. And so people are raising money for Sharsheret.
I've been to a few breakfasts in, I think, Teaneck area.
Yeah.
And then also during the 9 days, you make a very nice barbecue in
Long Island.
Yeah.
Right, so that's. I mean, I think this is going to be
after,
but it's coming up.
Yes,
I'm very excited about
yes.
the barbecue.
Yeah.
So hopefully
it
should be a lot of fun.
It's a good time, and
it's meaningful.
it's
And it's an asiyum, and we do it in tribute to the women who are going through surgery, and there's a lot of meaningful things that we can do that evening and people looking for meaningful opportunities. Then we do this competitive racing, which leads to healthy living and eating healthy and exercise, which we know. And with people thinking about what to do, know your family history, but also you have to get out there and you have to exercise and you have to eat right and all these things. Like, we're not telling you won't get cancer, but having a healthier body is going to help you heal quickly. So we really very much promote, at your Shabbos meal, and I know Rochelle used to say this all the time, switch the kugel for a salad. Like, it's not, it will make a difference ultimately.
My mom got much healthier actually after she was diagnosed with cancer, which is, kind of ironic, but it's really true. She started to really take stock of her health and make sure that she was, making the right choices and, walking, not doing anything crazy. Just, she would always... She did
a triathlon. That was pretty crazy.
That was pretty crazy. But I mean, she would be, she would have burgers with us. She would always, cut a little part of our pizza. Me and my brother didn't eat so healthy, but she always eat very well. It's... the events that, that Sharsheret runs that Elana was just talking about are... we look forward to them every year. The Race for the Cure, which is a really fun walking and take that, that group picture with everybody together, and over the years seeing that grow and grow, and then we had the Sharsheret benefit, which was, every year is a great event. And then we have this barbecue coming. There's just a ton of events that are meaningful, important. You're helping a good cause, and they are a lot of fun. I've won a Magic Johnson basketball.
Signed?
Signed.
Oh, wow.
At the auction. I would. They have a silent auction. At the
yes. I
Magic Johnson.
My wife
Ken
won
Griffey
something.
Jr. Senior signed baseball. So a lot of good goodies from that.
It is a very creative amount of prizes over there.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting you're saying about the body and being healthy and conscious. And I don't know if it's a America problem or just, the Jewish community, or maybe kind of a mix of both. But it's so interesting because, to get a little spiritual here is Hashem gives us our body, and it's so easy to just take things for granted, whether it's okay, things are okay now, and I don't really need to check in. And, as people get older, they realize their body starts acting up, but, and just naturally, people get sick, and to be able to prevent it, it's really the mitzvah of ushmartim nafshei seichem. And I guess that's the Yetzer Hara of it. It's the Sharsheret is such a good, easy resource, and still you have people who are just like, it's whatever. I'll deal with this in 10 years, and hopefully everything's okay for them. But it's so easy just to make a phone call and take care of yourself.
It's a really good side gig also to calling Sharsheret, is that you, in your own mind, I mean, I've never called Sharsheret, but in your own mind, you are, I always have them right by my front door, but I'm saying, you have in your own mind your health. You're putting your own health on your mind. And when you're putting your own health on your mind, it's easier to, I don't think that people are like actively thinking like, oh, I'll just eat whatever I want. I don't care what how healthy I am. I think people just get distracted. But when you have, when you're thinking about Sharsheret and you're thinking about being healthy and, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, I think that's something that comes naturally.
Right. So true. So aside for, and I'll plug it, if everyone at home watching or listening wants to donate to Sharsheret, I always say that, I try to get fascinating people and organizations and all that for Inspiration for the Nation. And there's a lot of people in Klal Yisrael, and just a lot of people out there that are they a good guest for the show? Maybe not necessarily, but they could be an inspiration for the nation. They could be so helpful. So if they want to be a part of what you're doing and helping people going through the most difficult and traumatic times of their life financially, I'm sure, the more money you get, the more people you could literally help. But then also on the side from that, what else could people do? Whether it's obviously calling Sharsheret, but also, I don't know, what could they do? Share ideas?
The first thing we always do is, it's easy to remember, tell two. After the podcast today, tell two people what you learned today. Maybe you learned about the new risk 1 in 40 Jews carries a BRCA mutation, Ashkenazi Jews. By the way, Sephardic Jews also have incidents of, and there are other mutations besides BRCA, BRCA. So tell
Sephardim,
two friends.
you didn't get off that one, sorry.
They're involved in a different way. There's no statistic associated, but there's a lot of marriage between Ashkenaz and Sfarad, and the genes are carried through.
Right.
And also, it's knowledge is power. So tell two people what you heard today. Tell them about Sharsheret. And the second thing that people could do is, I don't know how many people here are on social media, but a lot of people are. Sharsheret is on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. So, like us, friend us,
follow Instagram?
Us. Instagram, obviously Instagram.
Oh, that
sorry.
TikTok yet or not yet?
So interesting. We do a lot of work on college campuses. We're on every college campus that has a Jewish membership or has Jewish students. So they are doing TikToks there.
A lot of work on high school campuses.
Yes, and we do high schools.
Not campuses.
Pink
but,
Day.
Pink Day. We did Pink Day in MTA.
Are you guys on Schlizzle Shazzle or not yet?
What is that?
No, I just made it up. I feel like there's so many.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not here. Not in front
I
of
feel
all
like
these
the
people.
names
I was
are
ready for
TikTok and this, and I'm like, okay, let me throw something
Trademark
up there.
that. Trademark
Schlizzle
that.
Shazzle.
Someday.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that, so telling two people, also what we have, people in their local community can do their own event. And they could have a Sharsheret speaker. They can have, Sharsheret has a whole library of videos, appropriate videos to share at community events. And we help you create events in your community. We work with tons of shuls and tons of schools to have speakers. So bring Sharsheret to your community in that way. We had a family that called last week that 9 members of the family got on a call with our genetic counselor by Zoom. They remained private. We didn't see their faces, but they had very meaningful conversation, and things came out that otherwise wouldn't come out. We can do those kind of things. So I think do an event, make a donation, think about bringing it to your shul or your school. We do Pink Day. And also check out the website. There are a lot of really good resources, and you love stories. There are tons of stories, and we see ourselves in these stories. So check out the stories and call your doctor, make your appointment. And when you go to the doctor, bring Sharsheret brochures with you. Mention Sharsheret to your doctor, because the more doctors that work with Sharsheret, the more patients they will refer. And we work very well with the medical community.
That's really
Just
beautiful.
to reiterate again, also even you don't have to be, going through cancer or have somebody in your family going through cancer to call Sharsheret and to, find out about your genetics, find out about, what Sharsheret does. You could just pick up the phone and give them a call.
Yeah,
it's a very easy thing.
It's
such an easy thing to
I
do.
believe in karma. You try to put out as much good energy in the world, and that should help and protect you and should be a schus for you. You don't need, like you said, you don't need to be affected by cancer to be involved in the cancer community and help people going through it.
There's nobody listening to this podcast right now that shouldn't pick up the phone and call.
Wow. Wow. I'm going to ask you each a question, the same question, but like a different angle as like the last question. But before, I do want to say, but in regards to the events that you guys do, every breakfast I went to, like you guys have like, I don't know, some video of some sort. I'm like crying the whole time. Like you guys do the events really well. And obviously like the raffle at the end with awesome stuff. But I don't know the videos that you're referring to, but I'm sure they're similar. That they're really done well. And if someone does want to do an event, they definitely should. So my last question is for each of you in different ways. So Elana, it's more from the Sharsheret perspective, and Shlomo, it's more for you from like your personal experience. What not necessarily practical advice, but what like emotional advice could you say to someone who's listening to this that is going through a hard time, whether they have cancer, whether a family member has cancer, or not even cancer related? They're just, maybe just going through a hard time, and they could use some chizuk or inspiration.
I don't know. Do you want to go first, or?
It's not such an easy question to answer.
I think I would say that if you're going through something that's difficult, there's a tendency, and I sometimes find myself in this tendency if I'm going through something difficult, to try to go under my shell a little bit and try to ignore it and not, try to avoid thinking about it. And, there is a time and place for that. It's not like if you call Sharsheret, like they're sitting there like speaking to you 24/7 and you the only thing you're thinking about ever is cancer. It's just something that is, around to help you. So I just think that if somebody's going through a difficult time on a personal level, just reach out to the people around you to just get some sort of guidance, somebody who you trust, somebody who you maybe has been through the same experience as you. And I think it can really help, just to relieve some of that burden that I think, people too often try to just keep on their own shoulders when they can really use, the good people around you to help you out.
Beautiful. And Elana?
I guess to tag team on that because he said it so well.
Okay, sure.
No, I think what you're going through, it should be validated. Like I was speaking to someone today, and she said, I just lost it. She's had cancer for a year and a half, and it's just been a few things after another. And she said, I just lost it. And of course she lost it, and it's okay to lose it. I think you need to hear that it's okay to lose it, go into your shell, whatever you're doing, what's good for you. And you lead the way for how others can treat you. And this is the time that you can ask for help. It's okay, because there will come a time that you will be the giver. And ultimately, Sharsheret is not a sad place to work. It's not a sad place to be a part of. It's optimistic. There's, like you said, tremendous advances in technology and the medical community. We're fortunate we're living in the United States, and Sharsheret's all over the United States, in all 50 states, with offices in LA, Chicago, Florida, New York, New Jersey, and everywhere in between. There are people calling. But most women and most families, they're doing well. And there's a hope that you will have, your normal life will come back, whatever that normal looks like, and you can have quality of life with cancer. And I could just end with this story that a woman spoke the other week at this event that we had, and she was living with stage 4, and it was the first time she was sharing her story. And she didn't bring any friends or family because they didn't know her story, but she spoke in front of 150 people. And she said, I want people to see in me that you can have a normal life and that it doesn't have to be depressing. And she has 2 young children, and she's getting through it, and she's enjoying life. Yes, she has days that are harder. But that's what it is. You can have a normal life, and Sharsheret can help normalize what you're going through and validate it. And it doesn't have to be a very sad place to be. It can be an optimistic place to be.
My mom always spoke about that, living, it's, at some point, if you, for her, in her situation, not everybody has this, but in her situation, when she had stage 4 cancer, it became about living with cancer and not trying to put cancer behind her, but living side by side with cancer. And, just to, kind of piggyback back on what Elana was saying, that's an important realization that some people have to have, and understand that, that doesn't mean that your life is over. That just means your life is getting started in a totally, in a little bit of a different path, but, not a path that you can't handle. It's, can be, you can handle, and you can thrive in even the craziest of situations.
Well, Thank you both for driving in. I know it was a very far drive.
Thank you for having us, though. This is important. We need to reach as many people as possible, and you're doing such amazing work. I know that this podcast has grown
Thank you.
over the year.
I heard so many good things about this podcast.
Thank you so much.
So,
I really appreciate that, guys.
I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us the opportunity.
Sure, it's my honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I meant personally how I'm connected to the Sharsheret story is I was dating my wife when I was introduced to my wife, shortly before Rochelle passed away. And she's a cousin to my in-laws. And I, for the past few years, have been able to see through all the events and dinners and just incredible gatherings that Sharsheret has and fundraisers, the work that they do. And it's one of those organizations that people don't want to hear about because they don't want to need it in their life. But it's incredible what they do and how they help so many people. And it's just wild to know that like so many instances where people, have these diseases, cancer, whatever it is, and if you do your due diligence, it is sometimes preventable, and that just blows my mind. Something that I never knew, and just for that little nugget alone, it was worth it to listen or watch this episode. If you haven't subscribed or checked out our other episodes of Inspiration for the Nation, go ahead and check it out. If you're watching this on YouTube, we just passed 100,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, Living Lchaim, which is crazy because I don't know how many other observant Orthodox Jewish channels there are, but I looked around. I couldn't even find 5 that has over 100,000 subscribers. So that's a big deal. It's a big accomplishment, and we are totally patting ourselves on our backs. And we want to thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. You're missing out. We're having a whole party here, and you're invited. If you didn't yet rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and give us 5 stars, because every single time you go ahead and rate us 5 stars, I do a little dance. The little dance annoys my wife, but that's the point of it. Let's do that. No, it doesn't annoy her, and I don't do a little dance, but I should, and I want to. So rate us 5 stars. Until next time. Let me say, if you think this episode could help someone, share this episode. I always ask you to share the episodes, but this one in particular, it's we have an opportunity to continue Rochelle's legacy, but so importantly to help other people just live a longer life. And if they are going through cancer or whatever it is, introduce them to Sharsheret. It's incredible what they do, and it's incredible. And if you want to help Sharsheret, I'm going to have a link in the show notes. You could go and donate to them. And by the way, I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there. I have never, Nara, taken on an organization or a person onto this podcast for money. No one ever paid me to come on. If I believe it's an incredible organization or a credible person, I'll have them on. And I've held true to that, and I've seen the beautiful work that Sharsheret does, and that's why I'm happy to go ahead and plug them. But I don't want you to think that, like, again, I'm just authentic, honest conversation. I don't want you to think like, oh, Sharsheret paid Yaakov Lenga $100 to come on. No, I actually reached out to them and said, hey, I think this would be a great conversation. Spoke to a few of our cousins, and I think it's a win-win. I win because I get great content. You win because you get educated, and they win because they're able to help so many people. So go ahead and donate towards Sharsheret. Open your hearts, open your wallets, because they deserve it, they need it, and you could be helping so many people in Klal Yisrael. Till next time, Lchaim. Living Lchaim.